Hello there, Ellie McGraw here, and welcome to today's session. What we're going to have a look at, we've got 30 minutes where we're going to fly through, so I know everyone's quite busy with life. We're going to fly through some thought patterns that are keeping you stuck, specifically in your career and your relationships, that are really quite easy to change depending on how ingrained they are and how attached you are to them. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But I think one of the beautiful things about our mind is that it's very easy to change our thoughts when we know a little bit more about them and what they're doing to us and for us. So let me introduce myself. So my name is Ellie McGraw. I'm a trainer, a coach, and a previous sufferer of fear of rejection, money block central, and men. Ugh, yeah. And I always thought it was quite funny that, I suppose this realization of how much this fear of rejection has been ruling my life but my unconscious mind seemed to have been trying to get me to face up to it, and I wasn't really listening to it because I've been in a sales role for most of my career post university, and being in a sales role, you have to have a really thick skin and an ability to be able to be rejected. And I guess that comes, that rejection also filters through into money, and it filters through into men. So, I wouldn't go for the big jobs or push myself as far as I could to get more money because I was afraid of it rejecting me. And for men, yeah, I'd be going out with these ones that were really not right. But because they were kind of interested, I thought, well, at least they're not going to reject me. And I was always the one who rejected them first. And throughout that kind of journey of self-discovery and the roles that I've kind of put myself into, I really understood that my mind was creating a lot of this stuff, this crap, this bullshit that I had kind of wrapped around myself to keep myself safe. On this journey, I've really found out a lot of things from a lot of people that I want to share with you guys today, because it's so important that we know how to manage our mind, because we spend a lot of time with it and it's the thing that kind of makes everything work and happen. And the reason that I am here today is that I know what it's like to be inside your own head and not be able to switch things off. And I want to be able to share those tools with you and with the world, because once you know how, you can do so much better. And I had such a toxic mind. I always remember reading in a book about this lady who was on stage, and she had to look at herself in the mirror. And as she looked there, she got asked to, what sort of things are going through your mind right now? What sort of things are you saying to yourself? And she said things like, you're disgusting, you're horrible, you should go out and do more. Why are you not being better with your friends, or making better decisions with the food that you put into your body? You're such a waste of space. And then the presenter changed it and said, if someone was to walk past you in the street and was to say those things to you, how would you react? And at that, she sort of said, well, I wouldn't take it. I'd go up and I'd probably get quite physical, which I'm sure many of you can relate to. But isn't that so interesting that we have permission to talk to ourselves that way, but we don't give that permission to anyone else? So why do we allow this? Why do we allow our brain and our mind and that self-talk, that inner critic, to be so negative and to hold us back? And that's one of the things that I want to talk about today, because that inner critic is holding up those thought patterns that are keeping you small, that are keeping you held back. And whatever it is that you're suffering from at the moment, it's making those really things that you don't need to have around. So what are we going to do to change it? So let's have a look at these first. What are these thought patterns? So thought patterns number one, so these bullshit stories that we tell ourselves. So it's interesting. I coach people all the time, from a sales perspective and from a personal development perspective, from a relationship perspective. And it's so funny to hear the stories that people tell themselves. I really need to have that nice car, the house, the partner, all these different things in order to be happy. And really, it's nothing to do with those things. These are just things. The things that we put outside of ourselves that we don't have any control over. And it really, all this kind of stuff just starts with self. Things that we tell ourselves, like you don't deserve to have money, that's for everyone else. These belief systems that we've wrapped around why we've kind of got to where we are because it's safe, it's what we know. But really, do those stories that you tell yourself get you what you really want? Things like I always eat too much, I drive too fast, I always hurt myself, or men are really bad, I get really bored in my jobs really quickly. All these stories that we tell ourselves to keep ourselves safe. That was one I used to tell myself quite a lot. I'm doomed to be single. And at one point I did believe that to be true because I had this pattern and this story of these men that were coming in, and I'd obviously attracted them from one shape, form or another. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't find one that I really wanted to be with. And that was wrapped around these stories that I was telling myself. If you're telling yourself you're always going to be single, or you're never going to be happy in the job that you're in, or that you're never going to have money, or you're never going to have enough time, guess what? It's going to happen. Number two, you let fear of, and that ... you can insert whatever it is, fear of failing, fear of rejection, fear of love, fear of success. So many people I know that are afraid of success. What if I'm actually really good at this? What happens? What's going to change? What am I going to have to let go of? And that fear of whatever rules you, and it rules your life. So the decisions that you would make if that fear wasn't there is completely different. And if we took that fear away, fear is something that, it's kind of hard coded in us. It's such a very powerful emotion because we needed it when we're running around getting chased by dinosaurs. That's how old that fear response is. It's hardwired into our neurology, but because we don't have that hard fear anymore, we've let it slip into these softer things. So, fear of being rejected, fear of being loved. If we do put ourselves into these things and we get hurt, we don't want to get hurt. We're programmed to go towards pleasure and away from pain. So if we perceive something that we're doing to bring us pain, then that fear response is going to kick in, and then we just run away from it. Or we fight it so much, fight it so hard that it just makes us, not see all these other things that are so much more true to who we are and so much more beneficial to where we want to get to. They are meant to keep us safe, but nowadays they really just keep us stuck. Have you ever had a thing of you've gone into a party or you've gone into a work meeting and you've gone, I really should go and speak to that person. And then that split second, that inner critic comes about and he goes, or she goes, depending on how it talks to you. Mine's got a female voice. And it goes, no, they don't want to speak to you. They'll be really busy. Don't talk to them. Fear of whatever it is, and it could be rejection. It could be like, this could take me somewhere where I really would love to go, but I'm so afraid of what might happen when I get there. And there's nothing more scary than anything that we can make up in our own mind. I love that statement. There's nothing more scary than anything that we can conjure up in our own mind. Our imagination is amazing, and that's what makes it so powerful for us. You know, whatever we can imagine, the really bad stuff, it never really turns into reality. And that leads me into the number 3 thought pattern. We're worrying about other people, things that are going to happen outside of ourselves. And as Mark Twain says, I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which never happened. So we spend all this time in worry, you know, what if, and if this happens, what if, and we create all these things and these thought patterns and solutions and outcomes and all this stuff that actually hasn't even happened. And really what we should be doing is just dealing with what happens at that particular time. Sure, we can have a think about what might happen, so we've got some sort of alternatives. But when we spend all our time and our thought power and our energy in that worry rather than being in the present, you've got so much wastefulness, so much wasteful energy going to things that you could put into the right now. I remember when I was learning how to scuba dive, and I don't like being in water at the best of times, but it was something that I was like, oh, I'd really love to do that. And when I figure out that I'm telling myself I can't do something, that's my trigger to then start challenging that, take it on the head, and let's figure out why I can't do it. And I want to prove myself wrong because of that, sitting in that fear for such a long time. It's a new belief that I put into my belief systems, a new story that I'm telling myself, that every time I tell myself that I can't do something, I know that I can do it. And I've got all the resources that I need in order to do it. And I remember being in the pool, and I was at the end of the row. So we were doing the exercises, and those of you who've done scuba diving will know this one. We have to take off your mask and put it back on, take out the regulator. And that scared the absolute crap out of me. I was like, oh, but I'll just keep it in my mouth all the time. But to be a safe diver, you had to have these skills. You had to have this ability to be able to do these things and cope under the water should something bad happen. So I remember being in the water, and we're going along the people, and there were 6 other people in the water with me as well as the instructor. And each person was taking out the regulator and putting it in. And take it out, put it in, clear it. And as it kind of got through, I had this worry and this, oh my God, what if I can't do it? Oh my God, this isn't going to happen. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I was getting so anxious and so worried that as soon as I had to take my regulator out, I wasn't being present in that particular time. So I'd forgotten everything that I needed to do, and I shot back up. And the instructor had to come up after me. He's like, you can't do that. If you do that, in the water, you're going to end up making yourself really ill and hurting yourself. And I was like, okay. So again, went back down, tried to do it again. I was freaking out. And he said to me, remember when you were meditating, because we'd had all this conversation, and I just spent 10 days in a Buddhist monastery in northern Thailand, learning meditation from the monks up there. And he had said, remember when you were meditating, and it was just about taking one breath at a time and not worrying about what was going to happen in the future, what was going to happen, what has happened in the past, but just what's going to happen right now. And he said, just think about each time you take a breath, and don't be focusing on those other people and those other things in front of you. Just focus on whatever it is that's happening for you right now in this present moment. And that saved me so many times. I thought I wasn't going to be able to do it because I was freaking out so much and not able to do the exercises. But as soon as he tapped into that and tapped into my unconscious thinking of, I have all the resources that I needed to do, but I just needed him to guide me there and get me past that worry. And so when we have that worry, we might lose, we might worry about what other people think and what we might lose if we were to become unstuck. there's often, when I'm coaching people, I have to find out whether there's a secondary gain, whether there's an added bonus for keeping that thought pattern. What would happen if you did stop smoking? What would happen if you did pick up the phone and make 4 phone calls? It could be that, I get really busy and I don't like being busy and I can't handle my time and I get really stressed. That's going to get in the way of making things happen. For some smokers, they don't want to quit smoking because it's their advice to be able to go out and meet new people and create new friendships, because it is such a social thing when people go and have cigarettes. So just thinking about, like, what are you worrying about? And people don't want to be judged. I was with an amazing group of women last week, and a topic come up that, a lot of people were saying, well, I don't like to talk about it because I get judged for it. But this group of women were so supportive and just so like, yeah, totally, like, let's just have a chat about it. It's so interesting that many people worry that if I am that way, people are going to judge me. But if I am that way and I change, people won't want to be my friend anymore. And that saying that your friends, you'll figure out who your friends are and who really matters to you when you do that. That's what really, really matters. Stop it now. So stop worrying. People, when we worry, spending so much time in the future, we create things like anxiety and stress. Just deal with the present moment, wherever you are right now, because the worst thing that you can think of is never going to happen. Sure, there might be things that happen, but if you're spending so much time in the future, they're probably going to happen because you're not paying attention to your right now. And if we think about, all those scary things that might happen, because it is the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen if we change or if we do something a little bit different for us. But if you think about Columbus and Star Trek, if they hadn't been up for that discovery and that adventure, where would we be now? If we didn't have those people who were able to push the limits, and everyone has that ability to push their limits, to change how they are right now, it's just a decision that you need to make. And how many people on their deathbed have said, I wish I worried more about what other people thought. I don't know about you, but I've read a lot of things about, because one of the big things for me was, what's my legacy? What am I leaving behind? And I didn't like the answer when I first started this journey. And, so I got really interested in what other people were saying, just to try and give myself some ideas. And one of the main things and the main themes that followed through these things that people said, I wish I cared less about what other people thought and just really got on with what it was that I wanted to do. And number 4, I should probably have this at number 1. But you're focusing on all the wrong crap. Like, I don't know how often, and I do this, most coaches and people that I know, we all fall into this, but it's our ability to be able to recognize, where are we focusing on? Because where our energy goes, our attention flows. And your life is really, 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 really good at creating whatever it is that you want. So whether it's positive or negative. And you have to be so careful about the way and how you're actually thinking, because you'll get what you want in some shape or form. So think about, what am I focusing on right now? Have a look at your outer world, because that's a reflection on what you're actually thinking about and what you're focusing on. So if you are in a crappy job, or you are in a relationship that you don't really like, or you're constantly going out on dates, or you're not getting that promotion that you want, you haven't got a pay rise in X amount, things like that, just check in. What are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the fact that you're never going to get promoted and you're going to be in the same job? Are you focusing on the fact that you're just continually going on dates and that's not really what you want? Have a think about it. You know, when I work with people, I generally, they're like, I am thinking about what I want. I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be stressed. And, for me, I'm like, okay, those are all really good things to not want. But I'll let you into a secret. Your unconscious mind, so that's the thing that makes a lot of these decisions for you. And it's something I talk a lot more about in other trainings and other coaching programs that I run. But your unconscious mind is so, so good, right? It stores your memories. If you had to think about how to take a breath, all the things that have to happen inside, if you had to consciously think about that, you'd be exhausted. You wouldn't have room for anything else. Expand your rib cage, expand your lungs, tell the blood cells to take in the oxygen and then exchange that for the carbon dioxide, and and the electrical impulses that have to happen and the chemical exchanges. This all happens without you needing to be aware of it, because your unconscious mind takes care of that. It stores your memories. It's an amazing part of your brain. But it only does what it's told. Telling it to do, so to not be fat or to not be stressed, guess what? It cannot process the negative. And a little thing I do to demonstrate this is, if I was to tell you to not think about a blue elephant, what did you just think of? And I'm going to bet it was a blue elephant. In order for you to not think about something, you have to think about it. In order for you to not think about something, you have to first think about it. So every time that you're thinking about debt or being overweight or being stressed or anxious or whatever the word is for you, guess what? You're just creating more of that. So substituting what it is that you actually want. What's the opposite? What do you want? I want to be thin. I want to be healthy. I want to be fit. I want to be loving my job. I want to be excited to go to work every day. I want to be loved, and I want to be able to open my heart to someone. Whatever it is, just really tap into it. Figure it out. If you're still focusing on the negatives, if there's like less or no or not or but and things like that, just try and flip it and see what happens. See what changes start to come about. So what can you do? So these are the patterns that I've noticed that hold most people back in their career and their love life. And generally, if one's not going well, the other one's not going great either. And there's sort of synergies that fling between the two. And generally, when you start repairing these thought patterns and creating ones that you really want, both of them seem to align a little bit differently and start creating stuff that you truly want. So this is a little 3-step plan to help you change those thought patterns. If any of those have rung true for you, maybe one, maybe more. So the first thing that you need to do is become aware of those stories and those fears that you currently have. So figure it out, like, what do you believe about your life? What do you believe about your job? What do you believe about love and relationships? Become aware of those. Check in with your thoughts every now and again when you're in a particular situation. Check in with your body. How does it feel? Because you haven't just got your mind, you've also got another 2 brains within your heart and in your gut. So checking in with all of those and just like, what is it that you believe? What stories are you telling yourself, and what are the fears? And the next bit, sometimes this is a bit harder, being able to accept the things that have been. So how it's been in the past. Because when we start to be like, oh, it's so bad that I was this way and blah, 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 and we stay in that emotion and that belief state, we cannot move forward from it. We get stuck, we get held back because, we're focusing so much on how it used to be. When we can shrug it off and say, you know what, yep, that's the way it has been. But that's in the past now. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to create. And in that, there is a bit of forgiveness that needs to happen and a bit of healing. And number 3 is to take the action. So whatever it is that you need to do, if you need to change the thought, you need to change the action, you need to, whatever it is, take that action. If you have a certain behavior with a certain person, or in a certain, if you have a meeting with your boss and you're like folding in on yourself and making yourself really small, change it. Next time you have a meeting, go into the bathroom. I don't know if any of you have seen the Amy Cuddy TED Talk on how your body affects your mind, not necessarily the other way around. That power, step into it. Change your body. That's a simple action that you can do to start making changes. And one of the things that kind of kills me when I'm working with people is when people say, I know. Yeah, I know. And there's no action. It's like, you have all this amazing knowledge, and yet you just, that final piece, that one little thing, that action that's going to push you forward and completely change how your life is, it turns into the I know. And that conscious thinking mind takes over. And I know this stuff can be really scary. And it's like, ooh, but it only really happens when you've hit rock bottom and you can't take it anymore. That's whenever we have this desire and this need to change, when we can't take it anymore. We've had enough and we want to do something differently and change how things go. And then in that action, so I mentioned before that I was in Thailand meditating, and I was also in India meditating and learning different techniques and things from different people. But this was probably one of the number one things that really helped me start to change and have the courage and the power to do it, is creating that stillness and that awareness of, because when you meditate, those stories and those things kind of come up because your mind's gone, I need to think, I have to think, this is what I'm here for, this is my job, I have to think, But when we get into meditation, we kind of drop that energy. We get into a different beta wave. And we allow that quietness and that stillness just to drop down into our body and really soothe out any of that anxiety, that stress, that depression, any of those negative emotions that really keep us stuck. It's so beneficial just to be aware. When we have our phones, our laptops, our friends, our family, our jobs, all these things that are taking us outside of ourselves. We really need to be able to figure out, how do we get in? How do we get into ourselves, our psyche? What is our heart telling us? What is our guts telling us? It's when we really become congruent and all that kind of stuff, amazing things can happen. I hope that you find that useful. I know that we've kind of flown through that really quickly, but I really do love questions. If any of that has kind of, oh yeah, that's me and I'd really love to change that, please get in touch. I do offer a free 60-minute coaching session to new clients who just want to explore that a little bit further and see if that is something that you can change. Because sometimes we've been living with these beliefs and stories for such a long time, it's hard for us to kind of get out of them. And we need a bit of help. No person's ever got where they've gotten to without a help from other people. And it's okay to ask for help. I know there is a little bit of judgment around, asking for help, but it's okay. I've seen such amazing transformations happen with people when they surrender to what it is that they've got going on in their life and they're willing to make changes. And if that's you, then please get in contact. You can drop me an email. You can follow me on Facebook. Give me a buzz if you're in Australia. And what I'm going to send you a special little gift later on today into your inbox that'll help you on this journey. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next webinar. And I hope you have a great day.